Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. Welcome to season 4, episode 25. Self-belief. We've all heard it. We've all watched a TikTok on it. We can recall a speech based around self-belief. We all know our favorite famous individual talks about self-belief. Mindset is the pinnacle expression of the difference between those that achieve what we want to achieve and those that don't. We always hear about self-belief. Believe in yourself. Be delusional. Back yourself. If no one believes it, but you do, you will obtain it and achieve it. Self-belief is the core factor as to why someone who hasn't done something before can do it. So we always hear it, but what is self-belief? My definition of self-belief is a belief in oneself cultivated by the stacking of a resume of experiences, choices, achievements, and risks that validate you believing you can do something you have not before. Self-belief is not just something we blindly have faith in. It is evidence stacking from what we do. So let's take it back. I was very fortunate growing up with two beautifully amazing parents that did not struggle to allow their children to have self-belief. I was not at the mercy of my dad not believing in himself and him projecting that onto me. I was not at the foot of my mother lacking self-belief in her and it being projected onto me. Anytime I recall in my childhood moments tied around self-belief, it is not seen through the lens of friction. It is seen through the lens of welcoming support from both parents. I say lucky because that's rare. And I know that is a blessing, and I am fortunate to have had that experience as a child. I know so many individuals, I coach so many individuals that lack self-belief that stem from their childhood. Although self-belief was something that was welcomed to me with open arms, it was not something that came to me easy. I remember in primary school, and I can recall so clearly how terrified I was at any point in time it came to doing a speech. Reading something in front of a class, talking to the group, standing up in front of the class, reading a passage in front of the class. Now, I was always a confident kid. I could stand on my own 2 feet, could go slightly against the grain. I was able to do something that everyone else maybe wasn't, not to the degree I can now, but it was never something that really was met with friction or a roadblock for me. However, when it came to public speaking, talking to others, and those types of self-belief, I lacked it massively. I can recall so clearly in high school the worst parts of any test I ever sat through was giving a speech in English class. It was the most daunting time of the year. I was never someone that wanted to go first, but I didn't want to go last. So I would strategically go in the 15th out of 30 range. I would purposefully sit in the middle because kids have zoned out. No one really cares. No one's paying attention after 15 3-minute long speeches. I can recall so clearly a time that the speech testing took too long. The teacher cut the speeches and said, we don't have the opportunity to do it. I'm just going to give you a B. It could have been an A-worthy speech, but I was so relieved. Okay, I'll take the B. Now, how interesting is that? Someone who now does a podcast to 200 to 1,000 of you every fortnight, talks to multi-tens clients in depth every week, would love to do stage talking and group seminars, just haven't stumbled across the opportunity or the ability to yet. The end goal for me is to run a massive podcast talking to you every single week, as well as being someone on stage. But how interesting is that? Because it was my once biggest fear as a kid. I can recall so clearly and so easily the first gym that I worked at. The owner wanted us to have the confidence to present talks, to give out free seminars, to talk to groups in the group classes. And that terrified me. Group class instructing was the hardest part of my week. Talking with confidence as a 16-year-old kid to 30 to 40-year-old individuals. People who have experienced 20 years of what I'm talking about. I'm fresh out of education, just off my course. I know a lot of things, but I don't yet have the confidence to back what I'm saying. I can reverse engineer why I was so fearful. It wasn't because I lacked self-belief as a dynamic. I lacked the evidence stacked to allow myself to believe in my ability. Self-belief is not something you go into blindly with faith. It is cultivated from stacking evidence. I have a note here of what the pathway I think creates self-belief. It is an action backed with a repeat action, which then becomes evidence, which then further becomes stacked evidence, and then you cultivate self-belief. Believing in yourself blindly is not a belief, it's faith, and they're not the same thing. The more evidence you have stacked to support you are a capable and competent individual, the stronger your self-belief grows. We often see others being able to believe in us more than we can believe in our own self, and that is because they see us through the pure ability to do so. Yet we see our own self through the emotional lens of every time we've tried and failed, we've said we would and we haven't. So although at core we have the ability to do so, we don't believe it because of the evidence that stacks against us, not for us. The evidence that stacks every time you've tried and failed, every risk that hasn't worked out, every time you said you would and you didn't see it through. Self-belief is so critical for the success of you as a human. Yet so many lack it. It's one of the biggest lessons I try and teach and handhold through when it comes to coaching. It's the core reason so many individuals settle for comfort, stay in a position they're not happy with, stay in the jail of fear, embarrassment, and worry. I've said this so many times now on the Future Self podcast. Those that do and those that don't's difference is those that do, just go and do it. Those that don't, they don't do it. Very rarely is it a difference of talent, of work ethic, of actual skill ability. It's just those that do, they just get out in the field. They fail, they learn, they mess up, they trip, they fall, they get back up, they apply the lesson, they fine tune. Those that don't are crippled by the idea that they might not be able to. I spoke specifically about this in a recent episode. We're so crippled by fear that the outcome we want won't happen, so we don't do it. So we guarantee the outcome not happening because of the potential risk and fear. So self-belief is not actually a belief we just one day pick up. It is a byproduct of evidence, of work, of competence. How do we even get to a point of that? One of the biggest rules my coaching operates out of is doing what you say. Saying it and doing it. And if you know you can't do it, then don't say it yet. The eventual point of doing what you say and being that individual is I now say things I don't know if I can do, but because I've said it and I have created such a strength of showing up for myself and doing exactly what I say, I'll do it. If I was to say to you right now, I'm going to run a marathon, the burden I carry is that I hold so much importance on doing what I say. I would do that marathon right now. Even if it rips up my feet and tears my hip and ruins my knees and absolutely butchers and batters me. I've said it, I'll do it. Being a person to do what you say stacks the evidence to allow yourself to believe in you. This is where we go wrong. I'll go to the gym tomorrow, yet you don't. I'll have that uncomfortable conversation on Thursday, yet you don't. I'll quit my job next week, yet you don't. I'll start doing my washing and house chores before the weekend, yet you don't. I'm going to stop going out as much, yet you don't. I'm going to start saving more money, yet you don't. In what world would you be able to believe in your own self if you can't even trust doing what you say you're going to do? How could you believe in you if when you say you're going to do something, you don't do it? And I said a really key word there, trust. Trust ties in similarly to self-belief. Trust comes from positive experience, positive words of affirmation, positive reinforcement that this thing you hold, trust, this imaginary dynamic you hold towards yourself or another individual is solidified. Yet once trust is broken, it becomes brittle, fragile, and really hard to recoup. Same as self-belief. If you're always saying things that you don't do, you're always damaging the potential pathway of self-belief. If you're always going to do an action and then not seeing it through, stating you're going to try something new and then not trying it, you do not allow yourself to create self-belief. One of the biggest changes I've undertaken over the last 6 months is facing more of my fears. I'm terrified of heights, and I have for so long an intense fear of failure. I have been challenging those two things because every time I stand on a rock jump and I allow myself to say I'm going to do it and then I do it, the rush and intensity of self-belief that builds is indescribable. To know I'm so scared of doing something, yet I say I'm going to do it, and then I do it. And then I can recall back on this exact moment when I said, or I thought I couldn't, but I said I would, and then I did it. That builds self-belief. Self-belief is applied in the monumental, but it is built in the micro. The small, consistent actions we take and do is what builds self-belief. Self-belief is needed most in the big things. The changing careers, the traveling, the exiting a relationship, the entering a new relationship, the investment, the risk you're going to undertake, the moving states, the going after your goals and dreams when everyone thinks you can't. The monumental moments of your life is when we need self-belief, but it is built out of the micro moments. It is built every time you set your alarm and you wake up to your first alarm. It is built every time you say you won't and then you don't. It is built every time you say you will and then you go and do it. It is built in the most meaningless, insignificant tasks. When you stick to your diet, when you stick to your program, when you stick to the change you want for yourself, when you stick to your new routine, when you stick to the new hobby and sport, when you commit, when you show up, all the little things compound and build. 2 becomes 4, becomes 8. It's insignificant. It's tiny. But as the rule of compounding states, 8 becomes 16, becomes 32, becomes 64, becomes 128, 256. It builds and compounds. The biggest moments you need to recall on self-belief comes from the most insignificant actions. To think I am living in Indonesia right now, recording a podcast in a studio, invested in cameras, microphones, post-production, that came from me waking up to my first alarm. It came from when I said I'm going to do 100 calories. I don't stop at 90. It came from when I set a 45-minute walk. I did 45 minutes, not 42. It came from when I said I was going to post that vulnerable post, I followed through. It came from when I said I'm going to work on the public holiday and not take it off. All these tiny, little, insignificant moments, stacked evidence over weeks, months to years. If you, the audience, the person tuning in to episode 25 was to ask, how did you learn to believe in yourself? What course did you undertake? What podcast did you listen to? What mentor did you work under? I would tell you it came from the most bullshit, small, insignificant moments stacked over time. When I was tired, I followed through. When I was stressed, I overcame. When I was anxious, I lent in. When I was embarrassed, I did it anyway. The small, small things. This is why, with my clients and the work I do within Future Self, I am so passionate about. Oh, yum. I am so passionate about doing what you say, saying what you're going to do, not letting yourself down, being very, very strategic in sticking to the things you set out. Because that's what builds self-belief. And as I said, self-belief is needed in moments that are monumental. The buying the house, the taking the risk, the doing what you've never done before, the doing what others have never done before. All those little insignificant moments. Every time you say you're going to train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you don't, you are ruining your self-belief. Every time you say you're not going to get takeout this week, and then you do, you are ruining your self-belief. Every time you say you're going to stop online shopping, and you don't, you are ruining your self-belief. Already this far into the episode, you should so clearly and strongly understand that self-belief is not a belief we just one day choose. It is a stacking of consistent evidence over time. It is building your resume. It is allowing yourself to reflect back on, wow, all these times I said I would, I have. How could I not believe in myself? If every time I say I'm going to do something and I follow through, in what world would you not be able to believe in yourself? Yet those that lack self-belief recall on the moments they've tried and failed. They said they would and they didn't. They took a risk and it flopped. They did something new and became embarrassed. So they have evidence stacked that they can't. So the takeaway from what we've spoken about already is start doing the small things and sticking to it. Commit to the run. Fulfill the calorie target. Stick to your routine. See through saving your money. Have that uncomfortable conversation. Stand your ground. Stand up for yourself. Show up for yourself. Show up and work for your future self. Now, in a moment, I'm going to go on my phone and watch a few videos under the banner of self-belief. You'll also see it on screen, and then I'm going to express my thoughts. But the one common thing we see from people like Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozi, David Goggins is building undeniable evidence. Undeniable. Where someone that says against you being able to, it's just not applicable. If someone was to say to me right now, you might not make it in the podcasting world, I have way too much undeniable evidence to stack against that. A complete counter. If someone was to say, you might not be able to achieve that, I have way too much undeniable evidence over my whole life, but more recently, the last 4 years, to even consider what that individual is saying. Now, I don't have this delusion of ignorance where if someone says you can't, it's like, nah. I'm that person that believes wholeheartedly I can just for the sake of it. No, I believe wholeheartedly I can because of my undeniable evidence and proof. Those that lack self-belief versus those that do just have the difference of this middle area, and this middle area is undeniable proof. There's so many ways self-belief can be cultivated, and as I mentioned just briefly before, facing your fears is one of those. If you have a fear of public speaking and you slowly start to do more things along the lines of public speaking, you're overcoming a fear. Something your brain and your body is telling you not to, and you can muster the strength to do it. How could you not then believe in yourself? If I'm terrified of a rock jump and heights, yet I go and do that, how could I not believe in my own self? Now, like exposure therapy, facing your fear isn't always doing the hardest thing from the initial action. You can exposure therapy in microdose. For me, I might start at the small rock jump, then the big, then the bigger, then I go bungee jumping, then I go skydiving. It is a small build-up exposure therapy to it slowly getting bigger. But if you're able to face your fears, your anxieties, your embarrassments, and your stresses, how could you not believe in yourself? If the difference of someone who is successful versus those that aren't is self-belief, yet we know by pushing through your fear, you gain self-belief, which then means if you have self-belief, you can become someone that's successful. What is stopping you from facing your fear? Like, if you really think of that for a second, facing a fear almost guarantees self-belief, and self-belief is a massive engine that fuels success. So the successful person we admire and compare ourselves who isn't successful to has self-belief, yet we have an opportunity through facing our fear to build self-belief. What's stopping you from doing that? Yeah, it's scary, it's embarrassing, it's anxiety-inducing. Fair enough. It's what a fear ultimately is, but you still could face it. Just before I show these videos, another pathway I've been thinking of building self-belief is taking ownership over your role in what's not working. If you take ownership, that gives you back control and power to change the next time you do it. And if you change it the next time you do it, it stacks into the resume that you can. And the bigger that resume gets, the more self-belief you build. So if we lack ownership and it's everyone else's fault, it's because of this, I can't because of that, I'm unable to because of these things, that's another pathway you're closing off that could stack and build your self-belief. If you keep yo-yoing your diet and you've lost weight and put it back on, lost weight and put it back on, and you take fault, okay, shit, this is a pattern. Maybe I play a role in this pattern. So I own that it's actually my fault and I'm not the one that's doing the right thing. So I can change this. Then you change it. Then you stack your resume. Then you build self-belief. So if you're tuning in right now and you feel like you lack self-belief, yet you don't take ownership, yet you don't stick to what you say you're going to do, yet you don't ever face your fears, you don't ever take risks, there is no way you can sit here surprised as to why you have no self-belief. Now, there are 4 or 5 different pathways to gain it, and there's probably thousands. I just picked 4 out of 1,000 ways to stack self-belief. And if you don't do one of those, you cannot be surprised that you don't have self-belief. You don't need to do all of those, but if you don't even do one, there's no way you can sit here shocked as to why do I lack self-belief and others don't? Because these 4 stack the resume, and your resume, I'm sorry, might not actually be very in-depth. However, this episode right now could be the exact turning point. You could grab one of those 4, start one of them, exposure therapy, slowly build up the intensity, start the second, start the third, add in the fourth, and you're cultivating a steam engine towards building self-belief. So let's get to these videos. Now, we all know TikTok is very theatrical and dramatic. So these weren't 4 specific that I really hunted down. They're probably the first 4 that popped up. But they're all under the self-belief. And if this is information that I absorb through TikTok and Reels, it's probably what you are too.
Actually very against the whole confidence mantra of like people being like, you gotta believe in yourself. You have to do things so that you have evidence that you can support why you are good.
So Alex Hormozy on a TED Talk literally tied in perfectly with what I've just been saying, stacking your resume. You cannot shout positive affirmations into the mirror. You are strong. You are worthy. You are confident. That doesn't build those traits. Getting out in the field and stacking undeniable evidence is what builds confidence. Confidence is not just a choice. It is a byproduct of work. Self-belief is not a choice. It is a byproduct of work. And if it is just a choice, it's a very brittle belief you would have. I am so strong on my beliefs, not because I just wake up, look in the mirror, you are a capable individual, guy. No, I have years and years of experiences that state I am capable, even if I didn't believe it. If I didn't believe it, I would be idiotic because of the resume I have stacked.
There is a guy out there with half your talent but 10 times your self-belief making 5 times the money. Don't aim for mediocre. 99% of people in the world are convinced that they're incapable of achieving great things, so they aim for the mediocre. If you are insecure, guess what? The rest of the world is too. Do not overestimate the competition and underestimate yourself. You are better than you think.
Chris Williamson, he was quoting someone else. There is someone out there with half your talent, 10 times the self-belief, doing more than what you are now. Don't overestimate the competition and underestimate yourself. There are all these patterns now starting to pop up in what we're watching, what you see online, and what you're listening to in this podcast. Half the talent, 10 times the self-belief, doing more. You probably have more creative ability than the person that's actually posting Reels on Instagram, but because they believe in themselves, they're actually doing the work and getting the outcomes. You're sitting there with the potential, but you don't apply that potential because you lack the self-belief. So then they're living what you could, but you aren't because you just are not doing it. Isn't that interesting? People with half the talent, half the knowledge, half the skill set, half the ability, but they have the one thing you don't: self-belief. So they're achieving it, but you're not. You have more skill, knowledge, potential, capability, but they're living your dream because of the application of the work generated through the engine of self-belief.
One's going to like you more than you like yourself. So if you're struggling with yourself, then the outside world becomes an insurmountable challenge. It's hard to say why people have low self-esteem. It might be genetic. It might just be circumstantial. A lot of times I think it's because they just weren't unconditionally loved as a child, and that sort of seeps in at a deep core level. But self-esteem issues can be the most limiting. One interesting thought is that to some extent, self-esteem is a reputation you have with yourself. You're watching yourself at all times. You know what you're doing, and you have your own moral code. Everyone has a different moral code. But if you don't live up to your own moral code, the same code that you hold others to, it will damage your self-esteem. So perhaps one way to build up your self-esteem is to live up to your own code very rigorously, have one, and then live up to it.
I slightly disagree with the first bit, saying that no one will like you more than you will like yourself. I think just a little contingent change I'd put in there is no one can like you more than you can like yourself. Because not everyone likes themselves, and there are others that do like the individual more than the individual seemingly likes themselves. So I think can is the word of needed change. But again, not living up to your moral code. So this ties in with most recent episodes I've been saying about the people I've experienced in Bali. Of course, you lack self-belief if you pretend you are something you are not. The Instagram model that lacks self-belief, self-trust, and is very insecure, that shows up as a version on Instagram that they are not, editing their photos, changing their body shape, of course, that festers negativity towards self-belief. The person that just started the business that's bullshitting that it's thriving would lack self-belief in their business. Truth and authenticity are also, that's a fifth pathway, a really good way of building self-belief. If you're true to who you are, what you believe, and you're authentic in you, you follow your moral code, you follow your wants, your ability, and you speak the truth, that also builds self-belief too. Yet, when you act as a person you are not, in a negative light, not in the light of fake it till you make it under the future self guidance banner, another previous episode, if you act as a version you are not, you pretend you have more money, that you are fitter than you are, that you're doing better than you really are, that you're happier, of course, that is crippling self-belief, just like trust. Once you damage it and you pretend and you fake, starts to break apart. You live with you all the time. You are the voice in your own brain. You are the reflection you see in every mirror, window, or puddle that you look into. So you can bullshit everyone bar yourself. And if you're always trying to bullshit to everyone else, that festers huge negativity inside. So then, based on what we've been speaking about, what I see online, the TED Talks, the speeches, the podcasts, there are a few key principles that tie in with building self-belief and those that are successful. It's mindset, it's taking risk, it's pushing your own self, it's hitting your own standard, it's not being fake or fraud-like. And there's a little bit of delusion mixed in through the eyes of other people. Now I say delusion through the eyes of other people because you might have the evidence to stack saying that you can, but they haven't seen it. Almost every solo podcast episode I do myself through the Future Self channel, or that I tune into under the podcasters I like, there's just this consistent trend of getting out there and doing it. I say it all the time. Those that do compared to those that don't. Those that do, they just do. They're not smarter, fitter, better, more capable, more able. They just do it. Those that do something better than you aren't actually better than you. They've just done it long enough and messed up enough times to know. This is why I hate when coaches pedestal themselves. A coach is no better than the everyday person. A coach has just been out in the field, failed, messed up, tripped over, gotten back up, learnt, applied, progressed. That's it. Half the time when I talk to my clients and I almost finish their sentence of what they're going to say, they're mind blown. How did you know? Yeah, I know because I've done it. Oh, I've been sick all this week. I'm struggling to get to the gym. Yeah, I mean, I've been there too. I just think any person we pedestal, there are always exceptions to the rule. Nick Bear said this so great in a lot of his episodes. There is always an exception to the rule. There's always the outlier. There's always the freak of nature. There's always just the person that didn't need to do all the hustle and the grind work, whether it was luck or just genetics. But more often than not, the people you admire, appreciate, are jealous of, they're just people that are doing what you're not. You know, the only reason I know how to cue and exercise is I've done it every wrong way possible. The only reason I know someone's lying on their tracking sheet is because I knew the outcome when I was doing that myself. The only reason the person's not losing weight is because I know why you aren't. I've done that myself. The only reason the person's business keeps failing and I know about is because I've done that myself. Mentors, coaches, we're no better than the everyday. We are just the everyday human being. We've just been in the field, gotten the scars, stitched them back up, gotten a few more, stitched them back up. This is why I don't really like the energetics and the lights and the light language and all that type of shit, because it's pedestaling people above us, which just isn't the case. Like, this is a belief, and maybe I'll look back at this episode and go, wow, guy, you were so naive. How immature of you. How closed-minded. And I hope that I do. But someone that's a coach that's channeling this unheard language and light energy, that pedestals that person. They can do what you can't. No, I don't agree. They just know patterns you might not be able to see. They've just done things you haven't. They can just pre-predict through their own experience. There is no way in the world you can leave this episode and not walk away knowing one thing you can do moving forwards to build self-belief. It is impossible, out of everything we've spoken about and the 5 different pathways I have mapped, that you cannot start to just increase your self-belief a little bit. Remember, it's not just a belief pulled out of thin air. It is a stacking of undeniable proof and evidence. If you're not doing half the things I listed that you could be doing to build self-belief, start doing it. Do it for a month. Come back to this episode, leave a comment, and I can guarantee you'll start to believe in yourself a little bit more. And if there's one you're unsure of doing, you're unsure what's the best one, stick to what you say you're going to do. That fast tracks self-belief unlike anything I've ever seen. Saying it and doing it. Saying it and doing it. Pushing what you say a little bit further out of the scope of maybe what you can do, doing it. And then pushing the boundary more and more. This is episode 25 of the Future Self podcast. If you tuned in on Spotify, please leave the show a 5-star rating as it pushes out the message that I am so working hard towards sharing to others. If you're on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment down below a part of this episode maybe I called you out on, or a part you're going to start to do. You tuned in yet again, and I am so proud of you for doing so. I will see you in the next one. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Future Self podcast. If you did enjoy this episode, please leave a comment down below. And if you're interested in the way the Future Self podcast operates through life, click one of these videos, either side. Because what you just watched start to finish, there's a whole lot more of it on this channel.